gonna sit here and act like I was like, oh, this is disgusting, this is disgraceful. Like, I definitely laughed, but it's very serious. It's very serious. Hi guys, welcome back to the Shannon Show. So today's video is going to be a review / commentary / psychological analysis / kiki on the Ultimatum Season 2 episodes 1 to 8. I hope everybody is doing as well as can be, and I really do hope everybody is being as proactive as possible and supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. And if you're still on the lookout for some resources, I've linked some in the description. Feel free to comment down below your thoughts on my commentary. I'm always up for a chat, I'm always up for debate. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't, give it a dislike, no hard feelings. And if you really like this video, consider subscribing and helping your girl out. So, the Ultimatum Season 2. Well, this is actually the third installment of the Ultimatum. I've watched the majority of Season 1, but I actually didn't finish it. But I reacted to most of them on my Patreon. So you can watch all of the reactions I've done so far on my Patreon, but I am going to be uploading them to YouTube as well. So stay tuned for that. I haven't watched the queer version, but I also need to watch that season as well. In terms of what I thought based on what I watched of Season 1, it's just pure mess. I do not really respect it as an experiment. I don't really respect it as this is like a true test for couples. Like, this is an important process that they have to go through. I honestly feel like the whole concept is just foolish. Like, I just feel like I would be so embarrassed to be taken on this show by my partner, and I'd be so embarrassed as a partner having to issue an ultimatum and then taking this ultimatum to TV. Absolutely ridiculous. But as an advocate for messy TV, trashy TV, it was very entertaining to watch. Great casting, and I was definitely here for the drama. And that's what I came to watch Season 2 for the mess and for the drama. I'd be interested to hear from you guys. Do any of you actually see this as like a credible thing for couples? Would you take your partner on this show? I'd be interested to hear from you guys from a different perspective. For me, I just kind of feel like it's just foolish. Like, I just kind of feel like the whole concept is foolish, but I'm here for mess. So going into Season 2, in terms of my initial impressions on the original couples, the first couple is Antonio and Roxanne. Antonio is the one who issued the ultimatum, which I think is always interesting because typically it is, the woman who says, marry me or we're breaking up. And right off the bat, you can kind of tell why Roxanne is hesitant to marry Antonio. I think Antonio is just at a stage in his life where, he's hit his 30s now and he just wants to be married and he wants to, marry his partner, Roxanne. But he's still very much in the builder phase of his life. It seems like perhaps in the past he was financially irresponsible. He, did not have, high earning job. And I think perhaps she got into this relationship with Antonio under the pretense that he was gonna, build, and he was going to, get his life together, build up his income so he can be financially well off and kind of rise to her level in terms of finances. It's very clear that Roxanne, she wants a successful man. She wants somebody who is, at the very least at her level. And I feel like she's very uncomfortable being the breadwinner in a marriage. I feel like maybe deep down she knows that Antonio just doesn't have that ambitious to be, this financially prosperous person. So I feel like Roxanne is basically saying, yeah, I will marry you, but only if you are financially stable. So I need you to get to that point. Where Antonio maybe perhaps has got to a certain point where he just kind of feels like it's going to take a while for me to get there. So let's just get married now. And I promise that I will get to that point eventually. Like, just kind of accept me in my builder phase. And then on top of Antonio still being in his building phase, Roxanne also expresses that he's not very romantic. He's not very attentive. And Antonio is being very dismissive, very much like, oh, well, if you don't want to marry me, then someone else will. And I can definitely understand why Roxanne is hesitant to marry Antonio, because me, as a woman, if I was to be in a relationship with a man, I would not want to be the breadwinner, because we're still very much living in this patriarchy. It's still very much a man's world. So how are you up here in this man's world and you're not making more money than me? In this white man's patriarchy, you're with a white man who's not making more money than you. Sorry, I could not say. All that privilege, and you haven't been able to utilize that to get your money up more than me. That lack of work ethic just would not work for me. So I can see why Roxanne is kind of just side-eyeing him a bit. And I feel like Roxanne is scared of getting into the relationship dynamic where she's the breadwinner, but yet she's still doing the majority of the domestic tasks and doing the majority of the emotional labor. Because typically that's what happens when women become the breadwinners of the family. Aside from working, the gender roles pretty much stay the same. Women who are breadwinners of the relationship still do the majority of the domestic work, still do the majority of the childcare, still do the majority of the emotional labor. So I feel like she really wants Antonio to get his money up so that at least, you know, her financial burden is alleviated a bit. I feel like coming into this experiment, I think Antonio was definitely hoping that he was going to be a catch in this experiment. So many women are going to want him, and that Roxine is going to see how much of a catch Antonio is and be like, oh wait, actually I do want to marry you. I feel like going into this experiment, that's what Antonio was hoping for. But I gotta hear from you guys. What were your first impressions on Roxanne and Antonio? Then we have Lisa and Brian. Lisa's the one that issued the ultimatum. It's another dynamic where Lisa, the woman, is the breadwinner in the relationship. She's established and the guy isn't. Whereas in this dynamic, Lisa doesn't care that Brian is not the breadwinner. Brian is basically saying he wants to get his money up. He wants to be more financially stable before, you know, getting into a marriage, you know, and having kids and that. But Lisa is just kind of like, well, you don't have to worry about that because I'm already established. I already have money. I can always just cover us until you get there. And yeah, not gonna lie, Lisa was definitely giving me ultra pick me vibes. But it's very clear that Brian is not comfortable with that dynamic. He clearly wants to be, you know, the provider in a relationship. So he doesn't really feel comfortable getting married to Lisa when he hasn't gotten to that provider financial status yet. And I can definitely see where Brian is coming from, because in this patriarchy, as a man per, you should be aiming to get your money up. And in a marriage, often finances are the number one reason for divorce. So it's always important to have your finances in check. Lisa is very much applying the pressure. She's talking about her biological clock is running out. So it seems like she wants to, you know, get married immediately, start popping out these babies. Some foreshadowing going on. When she was like, oh, my biological clock is ticking, there was me thinking she was in her late 30s. And then I checked the age again and she was literally 31. I guess it depends how many kids she's hoping to have. I feel like if you wanted 6 kids, like, yeah, maybe you should start, you know, having your babies now. But if you only wanted like 1 or 2 kids, I think 31 is still very much young. I really don't feel like you need to start worrying about your biological clock until, unless you know you have infertility problems, or at least unless you have a history of infertility or fertility problems in your family. I kind of feel like you shouldn't be panicking at 31 about your biological clock. But like I said, I guess it depends what your family history is. At 50, my mum was still very much fertile. You know, one of my aunties on my dad's side literally just gave birth to a child, and she's like 52, 53. I kid you not. She conceived a child naturally and gave birth to it. So I feel like unless you've gone to the doctors and they told you like time is running out, I don't feel like the biological clock thing is really that deep. I feel like it's just a way society pressures women into having kids younger. But yeah, she just seemed very desperate, like she wanted her eggs cracked immediately. And that was some foreshadowing there. Overall, it seems like right off the bat, Lisa is way more emotionally invested in this relationship than Brian is. Based on first impressions, I wasn't really sure if Brian was really that into Lisa. It just kind of seemed like it was one of those, you know, relationships where it's probably not his ideal relationship. Lisa's probably not his ideal partner, but you know, they're in a relationship and it's good for now. That's kind of the vibes that I was getting from Brian, to be honest. Even though I do feel like men definitely should have their money up, especially coming into like a marriage-minded relationship, I do kind of feel like when some of these men be saying, I need to be financially stable before I get into a marriage, I feel like a lot of the time that is a cop-out reason. And literally on the first day before they coupled up with the other people, Lisa's panicking, she's having a panic attack and basically saying that she wants to go home, that this was a mistake. But Brian is basically calming her down and basically saying like, no, you brought us here for a reason, like let's see this out, like I want to see this experiment out. So it's very clear that Lisa's already ready to go. But Brian wants to stay. He wants to explore. So that was already to me that, Lisa is definitely more emotionally invested in this relationship than Brian. And I suspect that, Brian is in this. This is a good for now relationship. But is Lisa his dream partner? Probably not. I'd be interested to hear from you guys. What were your first impressions on Lisa and Brian? And what were your first impressions? Not after you got to know them, but your first impressions of Lisa and Brian. So then we have Ryan and James. They're young, but they're high school sweethearts. They've been together since they were like teenagers, since they were 16. Ryan is the one who's issued the ultimatum. Obviously, they've been together a long time because they got together so young. So I guess she's kind of got to the point where it's kind of like they've been together for 7 years. Like, why haven't they got married yet? It kind of gives the vibes that Ryan is from an environment where, it's the cute country girl and she literally gets married right out of high school. Like, that's just normal. That's the kind of vibes that Ryan gives off. James is saying, he wants to wait until he's more financially stable. He wants to finish school, get more established in his career, and then marry. And in this case, this makes complete sense, in my opinion. They've just got out of college. James is going to grad school. It makes sense that he wants to, go to grad school first, get his money straight before getting into a marriage rather than doing it while he's in college. That to me makes sense, considering where they are at in his life, where they are at in their lives. And honestly, at the stage that they are at in their lives, him saying he doesn't want to get married yet, I think would be a perfectly fine response. Like I said, it seems like very much, where they live, people get married fresh out of high school. Like as soon as they turn 18, they're already at the chapel. So I feel like maybe that's what Ryan has been expecting. But I feel like there's also kind of elements of that, they're high school sweethearts, but maybe James wants to explore before settling down. Like he's been with, at this point we've assumed that he's only been with Ryan his whole life. Like that's the only kind of like real romantic relationship that he's had. He's still young. And he gave me the vibes that, they've been together this long and that's why they've stayed together. But he low-key wants to, explore the world and maybe doesn't want to be tied down to Ryan. Maybe doesn't want to be tied down to Ryan. Maybe he sees Ryan as his wife. But I feel like maybe he thought the trajectory of their relationship would be like, once they go off to college, maybe they would have broken up. So then he would be able to explore and then he would come back to her eventually and they would get married. I feel like maybe that's what he wanted from, for their, love journey, and that's not how it went. Ryan obviously wanted to sit beside him. So he kind of just feels stuck in this relationship. That was the kind of vibes that I was getting from first impressions. But yeah, do let me know what your first impressions of Ryan and James were. And then we have Trey and Raya. Trey is the only other guy that issued an ultimatum. Trey is still kind of young, but he's approaching his 30s now. He's got a good job. And I think he's kind of ready to settle down because he is financially stable. He's in a position where he can, get married and start a family. I believe he probably has a grace period. Like he wants to get married now. Maybe he could wait like 5 years or so to start having kids. But he's definitely, somebody who wants to create a legacy and kind of wants to set the foundations for that legacy by getting married now. And I think for his girlfriend, Raya, she's a bit younger than him. She's 24, he's 28. And I kind of get the sense from her that she's not really ready for the commitment of marriage. She's still 24, she's still figuring out life. And I feel like she doesn't really want to get married until she's kind of figured out what she wants to do with her life yet. Which I think is definitely valid. But at the same time, it's very clear that they're both at different stages in their lives. And I kind of felt like it's probably not going to work out for them because Trey seems very serious, about marriage, and he's financially stable. He's got his money right. He's got a great job. He's already set the foundation down to be, a good husband. Obviously, Raya, she's a baddie. She looks good. I'm definitely getting a sense, he wants her as his trophy wife. Trey definitely is like, he wants to get married, but he also wants to have kids soon. I feel like maybe if he wasn't putting the pressure of kids over her head, maybe she would be inclined to marry him and say yes. Even though he's kind of like being a bit wishy-washy with, you know, his flexibility. Like he says, oh, like it's fine if we don't have kids, but it's very much, it's fine if we don't have kids straight away. But I feel like she knows in 5 years he's definitely going to be asking like where the kids at. So I feel like maybe that's why she doesn't want to get married to him, because she doesn't want to be, you know, the depressed stay-at-home mom. Trey definitely gives the vibes where he probably expects Raya to be the stay-at-home mum. But do let me know what your first impressions of Trey and Raya were. And then we have Kat and Alex. Kat is very much, you know, on this, you know, 2 years trajectory. I feel like a lot of women are on this trajectory where, you know, you've been with a partner for a certain amount of years. You know, she's 28. She basically expected a ring by now. She hasn't got that ring, so now she's issuing this ultimatum. And Alex is very much nonchalant. I'm not really sure if he is emotionally invested in Kat. Seems like he doesn't want to be a husband yet. Like he would be a husband in the future, but he doesn't want to be a husband yet. I feel like Alex definitely gives me the vibes where he feels like he could probably wait to 40 or 50 to settle down. Those are the vibes that Alex gives me. I feel like he probably wants to enjoy his 30s, and he feels like once he hits 40 or 50, he can find a wife. Now, I'm not even sure if she's really like in love or like emotionally invested in Alex. I feel like she just wants to be a wife, and she's chosen Alex because, you know, he's a successful man, you know, he's financially stable, and she's invested 2 years, so it's kind of like, well, bitch, I've invested 2 years, where's my ring, bitch? Those are the vibes I'm kind of getting off Kat. And do let me know what your first impressions of Kat and Alex were. So then we get into the dating phase where, you know, the couples are now single and they have to find a new partner amongst the other couples. So first up, we have a little bit of a switcheroo. It seems like Ryan has a connection with Brian and Lisa has a connection with Trey. That's not really much of a surprise because I feel like Lisa and Raya have like a similar look. So I kind of suspected that they were going to be drawn to each other's partners, and they're probably going to do a switcheroo. And with the switcheroo, they'd both be with the partners who, you know, either issued the ultimatum or didn't issue the ultimatum. And then obviously an obvious factor, like they're all black, they probably like to date other black people, so that was like a no-brainer that they were probably going to connect better than with the other couples. And right off the bat, Lisa is incredibly jealous of Brian's connection with Raya, and I just don't get it. Why come on this show if you know that you are an incredibly jealous person? I'm thinking maybe Lisa, she tried to escape the night before, like she was clearly having anxiety like the day before and didn't really want to do it. But it's like, if you know you're a jealous, possessive person, why go on a show knowing that, you know, your partner, your ex-partner now, knowing that your partner is going to have to mingle with other people romantically? Like, that's an element of the show. I didn't really get that. Obviously, they have a little singles meet up, and Raya and Brian are kind of solidifying their connection. And Lisa just goes out of her way that night to sabotage. When Raya and Brian are having a conversation, she's going up to them and interrupting the conversation, making things awkward. You know, Raya kind of just skedaddles out of there because it's awkward. And then she starts arguing with Brian, insulting Raya, basically saying, you know, what can she offer you, this Hooters bitch? Like, basically just calling Raya a whore. Basically just calling Raya a stupid whore. Like, so unwarranted, insinuating that she was dumb. Like, do you even know if Raya has a degree or not? Like, I was so confused. And I feel like it was definitely like the independent woman syndrome, where women, you know, who have excelled in their careers, who've excelled in their education, feel like because they've excelled in these things that they are better than women who may not have these things, specifically women who do not have these things but still manage to, you know, get whatever they want because they're pretty. But then when they go to the dating world and they're seeing the baddies with no degrees, you know, snapping up these men and getting the men that they want, they become jealous and it enrages them. And then we kind of get these insults like, what can she offer you? Like, she's a dumb bitch, she's a Hooters whore, blah, 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 blah. So that was just like all very uncalled for, all very unnecessary. You know, it's very clear that Lisa is very insecure. And then on top of that, I just really didn't really get that. What can she offer you? What can you do? Then couldn't you flip that the other way round? You're more successful than Brian, So what can Brian offer you as a man that is not as successful as you? You still want to marry this man. You still want to have this man's child. What can you learn from him? So honestly, that whole jealous outburst was just all very crazy. It was all very much like, if you knew you couldn't hack it, why bring him here? But then on top of that, in the midst of this, she also smushes him in the face in front of everyone, like pushes his head all the way back very forcefully in front of everyone. And this is in public, in front of everyone, on camera, which to me was just very wild. And I can't believe that they just kind of just kept filming her. Like, this was all entertainment. Security didn't step in. There was no security. Like, I hate to be that, but if it was the other way around, bitch, but if it was the other way around, security definitely would have been there. I can't believe that they kind of just let her get away with that and continued filming because it was entertainment. Because in my opinion, that was definitely a domestic attack. And it's definitely giving domestic abuser. I very much feel like Lisa is violent at home and she probably hits and slaps Brian. And the fact that he wasn't fazed by it as well, by the head pushback, it seems like it's a very common occurrence that Lisa puts her hands on him when she gets angry. At the end of the show, we didn't see no message about domestic violence, nothing. So obviously Netflix just kind of thought that this was just hilarious. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I was like, oh, this is disgusting, this is disgraceful. Like, I definitely laughed, but it's very serious. It's very serious. And yeah, Lisa is crazy. See the background checks on this show. Like, it's very clear why all of these abusers and red flags keep ending up on these shows. And at this point, I was thinking, yeah, Brian, you need to break up with her. You need to break up with her because it's definitely giving very much true crime. I just could not imagine acting out in that way in public, let alone TV. Like, yeah. Lisa is definitely crazy. And on top of making yourself look crazy on TV, like, you definitely spoiled your market. But I guess maybe not, because even after that incident, Trey still continued to explore his connection with her. The whole face smushing situation, I feel like she just kind of glossed it over. Like, obviously I have feelings for him, but you know, I'm here for this experience type of thing, you know, I'm a bit of a gangster type of thing. Like, they were kind of joking about it. So I was thinking maybe Trey likes a bit of a toxic woman, stuff like that. Because yeah, some men out here be liking that toxic stuff, you know. I was definitely side-eyeing Trey because for me personally, if I saw that, I definitely would not want any parts to do with Lisa after seeing that. So yeah, I was thinking maybe Trey wants a bit of passion, he wants a little bit of toxic love, toxic energy. I don't know, it was just weird. Like, I was thinking, how can you actually be on a date with her after seeing that? Yeah, that was weird. After that whole incident, we do see Brian and Raya continuing their connection. Raya kind of insinuates that, you know, after that whole domestic situation, he was kind of keeping his distance, but now they kind of reconnected and are talking. And while they're talking, it becomes clear that perhaps maybe like the financial situation is not the main reason why Brian doesn't want to get married to Lisa. Obviously, we just saw her outburst. She's fucking crazy. She's abusive. And that's probably, you know, one of the main reasons why he probably doesn't want to get married to her. But they do start discussing finances. And obviously, Raya's a good-looking girl. She's a baddie. And I feel like in the conversation, he was trying to gauge, you know, whether she would be a 50-50 babe with him. Also says stuff about, you know, if I, you know, was to be in a financially bad situation, would you hold me down type of thing. And I feel like Raya was definitely, you know, curating her answer to be humble with it. Basically saying, you know, oh yes, she would expect you to like cover the mortgage, but she can help out with like, you know, the electric bills and stuff like that. Of course, she would still like expect, you know, to be gifted here and there, you know, but she's got her own money. So like if she really had to hold her man down, she would. And I definitely feel like she was trying to be humble with it, but she's not really fooling me. I feel like Raya is definitely a material girl. I feel like Trey is definitely providing for her, definitely covering her expenses, her nails and makeup, etc. I definitely feel like at the very least that's what she prefers. But she was just trying to be cute with her answer because, you know, a lot of women don't want to be seen as a gold digger. But I just kind of feel like if you know you're a material girl, if you know you want the princess treatment, the dream girl treatment, you need to set that standard from the beginning. So when men start fishing around to gauge whether you're materialistic or not, the answer needs to always be yes. If you're a material girl, you need to let them know who you are so they can address you as such. Don't try and be something that you're not. Try to be a shy, humble, material girl. It's not going to work. You have to be bold to set that tone. Because if Trey came to Raya and said, we're going 50-50 on everything, do you think Raya would still be with Trey? Let's be real. Let's be real, Raya. Let's be real. We also see James and Raya making a connection as well. But for me, it kind of seemed one-sided. It seemed like James was more interested in Raya than Raya was interested in him. It seemed like Raya was probably more interested in Brian. James kind of like immediately opens up to Raya. They kind of connect on having similar backgrounds. They both have single mums. But when they were opening up, it was just a bit awkward. It seems like James was opening up right off the bat, and then Raya was just there trying to kind of be comforting, but it was just all a bit awkward. And you know what? It kind of would be awkward, like day one, I'm just meeting you and you're already like trauma dumping on me. Like, yeah, it would be a bit awkward. And yeah, I kind of thought that was a bit strange that he was like already trauma dumping on day one. I feel like trauma dumping early on is a bit of a red flag in my opinion. But even though I feel like Raya probably had more chemistry or had more of a connection with Brian, I thought maybe she might go with James because she doesn't want to deal with a crazy ex like Lisa. Like if I was to have seen that outburst after seeing how crazy Lisa is, I definitely wouldn't want to be dealing with Brian because I wouldn't want to end up in a true crime documentary. And then we see Alex and Roxanne making a connection. They're both, you know, in a similar space career-wise. They both, you know, have, you know, are entrepreneurs. Alex had a business, he sold it off, and now he does other stuff. And Roxanne has her own successful business. I didn't really see chemistry there, but I kind of thought that, you know, Alex is probably a better match than her man Antonio. Obviously, you know, he is kind of, you know, still in the building phase. Alex is more established. So I was thinking, okay, this is perfect for Roxanne. Those were my first impressions. Then there was Antonio and Kat, and I kind of felt like their connection was definitely giving leftovers. I feel like Antonio definitely thought that all of the girls were going to be all over him, but he kind of just settled with a connection with Kat because she was the only girl showing him attention. So I feel like in the dating phase, Antonio was definitely humbled. So then the next phase was the partner choosing ceremony. At this point, my predictions were that Raya and Brian were going to get together. Lisa and Trey were going to get together. Alex and Roxanne were going to get together. Antonio and Kat were going to get together, which would have left James and Ryan still there. And I was kind of thinking, well, how is that going to work? Are they just going to have to stay together if they didn't find other connections? Obviously, Ryan was talking to Trey, but it seems like Trey probably has a better connection with Lisa. So I was kind of like, I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. So the partner choosing ceremony begins. Nick and Vanessa are there hosting. And right off the bat, they reveal that Lisa and Brian have left the experiment. So I'm just kind of thinking, what has Lisa done to Brian? Has she threatened him? Has she locked him up in a basement somewhere? Like, because I was thinking, I really don't think that Brian has decided to propose to Lisa, especially after that crazy outburst. I definitely don't think that Brian chose to propose to Lisa and leave. Then Nick and Vanessa revealed that they declined the opportunity to explain their decision of leaving the experiment. But they do reveal that the reason that they have left is because Lisa is pregnant. Lisa is pregnant, allegedly. And I was like, what? And then I was like, of course, Lisa went and trapped Brian with a baby. And she was probably plotting this whole time. She probably didn't really want to go on this show. Maybe she was hoping that he was just going to be like, okay, like, this is ridiculous. Going on this TV show, let's just get married. I feel like that's what she was hoping. But I feel like as they kept, you know, getting closer to the date, Brian was probably like, you know, yeah, I think this is going to be good for us, dating other people, blah, blah, blah. And she was probably like, oh, hell nah, he's going to be dating other people. He's going to be entertaining other women. So she was plotting, you know, because most women know or have an idea about when they're ovulating. And, you know, if a woman is determined to get pregnant, she could definitely, you know, be syncing things up to make sure that she gets pregnant. And I feel like that's what Lisa did. I feel like before they came in, she definitely plotted that she was going to get this ring by any means necessary. So before they went in, she got done synced up her ovulation. Who knows if she said she was on contraception or not. But she made sure and she made plans to catch that seed, honey. She's probably praying or rubbing her crystals together to make sure that she had manifested this baby. And what do you know, the manifestation came through. Now, we did see the scene where Lisa does reveal the news to Brian. And, you know, Brian, he puts on a happy face. He seems to be happy with this news. Personally, I don't buy it because, I mean, it's Lisa. We've seen her hit him in public. So he knows that he has to at least act like he wants this baby. But I suspect he probably did not want this baby. And Lisa basically insinuates that because they're now having a child, she hopes that he is now going to, you know, propose to her and marry her. Brian's basically like saying, you know, he's here to have this child, but, you know, it doesn't mean that they're now going to rush into marriage. Like, his feelings on marriage are still the same. But Lisa was definitely got herself pregnant, hoping that he was now going to commit to her and get married to her because, you know, they wouldn't want to be having a child out of wedlock. And yeah, like I said, Lisa's definitely crazy. It's definitely giving true crime documentary. I got to hear from you guys. Do you feel like this was just a random coincidence, or do you feel like this was a coordinated attack? Do you feel like Lisa was plotting to trap Brian with a baby? I got to hear from you guys. And when I was looking on Twitter, some people were saying, you know, is she even pregnant? Is she even really pregnant? Because yeah, she really just could have lied. What if she lied? I don't know. I feel like maybe Netflix would have double checked, but you never know. You know, some people have their means, but I gotta hear from you guys. If this is true, if Lisa really is pregnant, what do you think? A coincidence or she was plotting? Let me know what you think. With Brian and Lisa now out of the experiment, I feel like it kind of, you know, put things into place in terms of where Ryan and James was going to go. Obviously, Ryan was going to get with Trey because they kind of formed a connection, and Ryan was going to go with James because they kind of formed a connection as well. And that is how it went. Roxanne got with Alex, Kat got with Antonio, Trey got with Ryan, and James got with Raya. And one thing to note in this ceremony is that I feel like Roxanne and Alex were being very shady towards Kat and Antonio. Like, when Kat was getting picked by Antonio, Kat was basically insinuating that she was kind of hoping that Alex would be a little bit more jealous, but he was basically like, yeah, I love this for you, I'm happy for you, like I feel like you guys are probably a better match, so I'm happy for you to explore this relationship with Antonio. And he just didn't really read the room, like, and he just wasn't really reading the room. And then he was basically, you know, saying like, yeah, like, me and Roxanne are probably, you know, a better match for this experiment because we're very similar. And I feel like he basically said, like, Roxanne is a boss bitch and you're a mouse. So I feel like it's gonna be interesting for me to be with someone on my, like, on my level. You're not really on my level. I feel like that's what basically he was saying to Kat during that ceremony. It was just a bit like, oh. So yeah, I kind of just felt like in that moment that I feel like Alex and Roxanne, they clearly don't really like their partners. I feel like they're both with their partners because it's convenient right now. But they don't really like their partners. But I'd be interested to hear from you guys. Were you surprised about the first couplings? Were you not? Let me know what your thoughts were on the whole partner choosing ceremony. So in terms of the first trial marriage, first up we have Antonio and Kat. So right off the bat, it's very clear that Antonio and Kat don't have any chemistry. They won't be establishing any romantic chemistry. And it kind of seems like they're both insecure and jealous of Alex and Roxanne. I think it's more so Antonio. Antonio is basically just talking all the time. Like, he's often saying that he feels like, Alex is, Roxanne's dream partner, and Roxanne is Alex's dream partner as opposed to them. Kat tries to pipe up a lot of the time and be like, oh, no, I don't feel like Roxanne is Alex's dream partner, basically saying, like, I'm still very much number one. Like, speak for yourself. Antonio also does open up about his past with drug addiction. He says that he was high for 5 years. He doesn't really delve into, what type of drug addiction that he has. I suspect he was probably a weed head. It gives me weed head vibes, to be honest. Maybe that's why he's still, in his building phase, at 30, because, he kind of was, probably spending all of his money on drugs. But I feel like a lot of the time, their coupling was just a bitching session. It also becomes more obvious how selfish and self-centered Antonio is. And he does admit to Kat that he is a bit resentful of Roxanne's success. And I feel like that does happen a lot of the time in relationships with men and women where the woman is the breadwinner. The man often feels, insecure. He also kind of confesses that he feels like he can't really keep up with Roxanne's lifestyle or Roxanne's spending power, and that's basically why he isn't that romantic, because he kind of feels like he has to match her spending power. So obviously she could spend £500 easily, but if he was to do the same, he would be struggling for the rest of the month. And I feel like it's perfectly valid to feel that way, but the disconnect for me is that his solution for this is to basically just do nothing at all. He just assumes that because he's not spending, X amount on her, it's just not going to be good enough. So he just decides to do nothing romantic at all. And it's just kind of like, she's already dating you. Yes, she wants you to build. Yes, she wants you to get more financially stable. But she knows what financial situation that you're in already. So I just don't understand why now he can't just do something very thoughtful within his budget. There's so many inexpensive romantic things that you could do for free that are thoughtful and would be just enjoyable as more expensive things. I'm pretty sure Roxanne knows that he can't afford to take her to a Michelin star restaurant, but I'm sure she would appreciate if he, tried to recreate fine dining at home, watched a YouTube tutorial and made a really nice dinner at home with food from the supermarket. Got some candles and some roses. Instead of doing that, he's just decided, well, he's just not going to do nothing at all. And I feel like that's definitely where the resentment comes in, because it's now kind of like, well, if I can't have nice things because I'm poor, I'm not going to give you nice things because you can buy it yourself. I feel like this is what that kind of resentment builds. And I feel like that's the type of resentment that the dynamic of the female breadwinner builds with men who kind of feel slighted by being with a woman who makes more money than them. And that's why I just don't see Kat that dynamic, because he will start to resent you and then you start to resent him. I ain't got time for that. So yeah, Antonio and Kate's trial marriage was basically a flop. And then we see Alex and Roxanne. Like I said initially, they're both very similar. They both kind of run businesses. They both, are financially stable. But right off the bat, Alex was just very analytically minded. And I felt like he spoke in sales pitch. Like, when somebody, someone who works in sales and they're so up in the sales world that they start speaking to you like a customer. That's the vibes that Alex was given, and he was just talking a lot of rubbish. There was one point where he was talking about how, he's an advocate for marriage. He's even spoken to people who've been divorced that advocate for marriage. Like, what? He kept talking about marriage as a business deal. And don't get me wrong, marriage definitely is kind of a business deal for the most part. But him just talking about it, like, just off the bat, it just seemed very unromantic, all just a bit suspicious. Like, when you get that intuition as a woman about a man's intentions, and you're just like, I'm just a bit suspicious. Like, what do you mean by that? my marriage is a great business decision. What do you mean by that? But I'll talk more about that later because it becomes very apparent what he meant by that. But yeah, like I said, he speaks a lot in sales pitch, and he speaks a lot like a dating coach, like those phony dating coaches. Like he was giving off that vibe when he was speaking. Now, initially, Roxanne was basically saying like, oh yeah, like I feel like he, you know, he's great to speak to. I feel like he understands me. That's what she was kind of saying initially, but I was just kind of like, I don't know, maybe she's seen something that we're not. So then Roxanne meets Alex's parents, and I kind of got the feel that maybe they didn't like Kat that much, because I got the feel from Alex's parents that they felt like Kat was a bit too submissive and that he needs to be with someone more challenging. And then we also see Alex meet Roxanne's parents, and they were a bit shady. I feel like they don't really like Antonio. They were basically insinuating that like all of her past partners have been very unserious. It seemed like they liked Alex. It seems like they feel like he's an upgrade. But one particular thing in that meeting is that, you know, when Roxanne's parents are basically asking Alex whether he does like romantic things, like does he, you know, open doors and, you know, pull out chairs, he was like, yeah, I think I do that. And Roxanne was basically like, no, you don't. So that was immediate, like, oh, maybe, you know, cracks are starting to show in this kind of trial marriage or in this connection going on. And I was just kind of like, ooh, interesting. But the cracks in this trial marriage definitely become a lot more apparent when the girls and the boys in the experiment have like night out with each other and they all get to talking. So Roxanne has a talk with Kat and is basically just warning Kat that Alex is just like a walking red flag. He says that he's not romantic. He says that he is a liar and that he lied to her parents about how he was treating her, and how he talks up about how he's this successful businessman, but she's always catching him napping during the day, and that he's always putting on this act, and that she feels like she's always talking to a salesperson. So it was all coming out during that chat. And I was thinking, like, I knew there was something fishy about Alex. And it did confirm my suspicions of Alex, that he's fake and he's putting this persona on. And basically, by the end of this conversation, Roxanne essentially tells Kat that she should leave Alex. And to be honest, I agree. Alex is definitely a walking red flag. Like, I doubt that he cares about Kat. But I was also suspicious of Roxanne warning Kat, to be honest, because when the girls all got together, she was basically saying how they got along so well and how they were, you know, exploring, you know, getting physical with each other. Like, they were thinking about getting physical with each other, you know, in front of Kat to, I don't know, make her jealous, because she kept looking back at Kat when she was talking about her and Alex potentially getting intimate. So I was just kind of thinking, like, are you telling Kat to leave Alex because you generally want the best for her? Like, are you coming to her as a woman, or are you trying to steal her man, like, behind her back? Like, I was a bit confused. I was a bit suspicious. I was definitely thinking, like, I'm gonna have to see what you do next. I think it was very clear that Kat, though she was nodding her head and being like, oh, okay, to Roxanne, she was definitely going to stick beside her man. Like I said, I feel like Kat probably knows Alex doesn't love her, but, you know, I feel like, again, she just wants to be married. She knows who Alex is. She knows how Alex views marriage, and she's happy to be a part of Alex's financial decision. Now, over at the boys' night out, Antonio and Alex get speaking. And this is where it all gets very messy, because during the night, Antonio is trying to get a read on Alex. And Alex is staying very coy. He's keeping, you know, all the cards to his chest. He's basically saying he doesn't know who he prefers. He's going to make a decision. He's moving towards making a decision, but he's not really saying who he likes more. So obviously, you know, Antonio obviously really cares about Roxanne. He kind of wants to know, you know, what he's up against. Is Alex going to steal his woman? So he's basically like pushing Alex for an answer in terms of, you know, how is their relationship going? And then Alex is basically like, well, you know, man to man, I'm just going to keep it real with you. I feel like Roxanne doesn't respect you and you're her whipping boy. Like, you're her bitch, basically. Well, you didn't have to say it like that. Like, honestly, like, That was a bit mean, Alex. Like, why'd you have to say it like that? Like, that was mean, Alex. Obviously, Antonio is very insecure about his position in this relationship. So this has incredibly triggered him. And he is like in the stage of denial. And he's basically saying, Roxanne would never say that about me. Like, you're a liar. You're just making shit up. Like, she would never say that about me. And you know what? Alex was definitely messy and rude for saying that to Antonio. But I don't think Roxanne respects Antonio. She wants somebody who at the very least makes, you know, the same amount of money as her, or if not more. And like I've been saying, you know, in this patriarchy, in this white man's world, she's with this white man who is not making more money than her, who is financially struggling. I can believe that there is some sort of lack of respect there for his lack of ambition, for his lack of drive, because you have all this privilege and look what you're doing with it. So I can definitely believe that Roxanne was probably cussing Antonio out, probably, you know, calling him a bum, calling him lazy, calling him unambitious. I can believe Roxanne was probably chatting shit about Antonia in that manner. But I gotta hear from you guys. Do you feel like it was uncalled for Alex to say that to Antonio? I feel like the delivery was definitely off. I feel like he definitely was malicious with the delivery. I feel like he definitely wasn't saying, I just need to tell this guy how it is. He was definitely being malicious with that delivery. But I was here for the mess, to be honest. I was here for the mess. But I'd be interested from you guys. So obviously, after hearing that Roxanne has basically said that he doesn't respect him, Antonio is spiraling. He's still in his denial phase. He's gone back home to Kat and he's basically saying, oh, I can't believe Alex said this to me. He's a liar. She would never say that. And then Kat basically pipes up and basically says that she thinks it's true because Alex's parents texted her and basically said that they don't think that Roxanne likes Antonio very much. And then he starts saying that, oh, the parents are lying as well. Like, everybody's lying. They're all liars. Like, him and his family are liars. And I was just like, oh, Antonio, like, I know you hurt, but like, why would the parents lie? Like, why would the parents lie? And Kat is basically saying, like, what incentive do the parents have to lie to me? And then he was basically trying to gaslight Kat and basically say, they texted you that as if to let you know that Alex don't want you no more, he wants Roxanne. And I was just like, oh my God. The delusion, I stand it. This then sends Antonio spiraling even more, and he now calls up Roxanne and basically confronts her about the whole situation. And I feel like Roxanne kind of admits that she has, at the minimum, chatted shit, but she denies that she doesn't respect him and that she ever said that she doesn't respect him. And I'm sure she probably didn't say explicitly, I don't respect him, but she probably said words to that effect, like, you know, he's a bum, he's this, he's that, he's shit, he's lazy, blah, blah, blah. So Alex then comes home and Roxanne confronts him and is basically like, you lying bitch, like, why are you spilling my business, you fucking snake? We're meant to be in a trial marriage. The stuff I say to you in confidence, nobody else should be hearing. And I do feel like that's perfectly valid from Roxanne. Like, you're supposed to be my husband. I'm supposed to be your wife. Our bitching sessions together shouldn't be going back to the source. Like, the person who I'm bitching about shouldn't be hearing about my bitching sessions if, you know, we're supposed to be in a trial marriage. And the fact that you're just saying this to the ex as well, it's just snaky business. It's messy business. And at this point, Alex should have apologized. He should have been like, you know what, that was my bad. My delivery was off. You know, you told me that in confidence. I shouldn't have gone and reported back to Antonio of all people. He shouldn't have done that. I feel like he should have apologized. But then again, looking back at the same time, Roxanne, you were basically, you know, bitching to Kat about Alex and basically saying that, you know, you should leave him. He's a big red flag. You shouldn't be with him. So I don't know, maybe Alex sussed you out before and was like, you know, if this bitch gets me, I'm definitely going to get her back. So I feel like they both did snaky things to each other, to be honest. But at this point, Alex doesn't know that Roxanne was chatting shit about him behind his back. So at this point, he should have apologized. And this is when the red flags start red flagging. Because instead of apologizing for putting Roxanne in it and stitching her up with Antonio, he goes straight to the gaslighting. Starts calling her insecure, saying that she takes her insecurities out on Antonio and he deserves to know. And Roxanne basically sees straight through the bullshit. She's basically like, is this what you do to Kat? You think that you can try and make me feel weak by calling me insecure? Like, it's not gonna work on me. And then he starts piping back saying, well, I think it is working. I think it is working, as in, like, he's telling you, yeah, I am trying to break you down right now. I'm trying to humble you right now. And yeah, I think it's working. Can you believe? Can you believe? I would be sick. I would be sick. And I know Roxanne was sick because it's just kind of like, you know, when a narcissist starts unraveling itself before you, like, wow, like, you know, they look all cute and harmless, but then the monster starts coming out and you just see it before you, and you just see it before you, and you're like, ha! Then obviously Roxanne starts piping back saying like, oh, is this how you treat Kat? Like, that's why you're with Kat, because you want someone to be weaker than you want someone to be beneath you. Do you honestly feel like you're the perfect partner for Kat? And he starts with saying, yeah, I think I am the perfect partner with Kat. Like, I feel like I do all the things that she needs. And it's just like the delusion for me. Like, it's very clear that Alex is a narcissist. And then the conversation moves on to basically Roxanne complaining that he's not really holding his weight in the domestic duties. Like, she doesn't help him. You know, she doesn't help her when she's cleaning up. He's basically saying like, you're not my mother. You can't tell me when I should clean. Like, I'll do it when I want to. I've got better things to be doing. I'm working. I've got a business to run. You should stay in your lane. Like, basically insinuating that, yeah, like your lane is the cooking and the cleaning. And I know Roxanne's head wanted to explode at that point, because it's the audacity for me. The audacity to me, like, I work, stay in your lane, as if she's not working and running a business as well. And that's why I got this feeling like when I was like, when he was talking about how a marriage is a good business deal, because he likes that Roxanne is ambitious so that he can keep his finances, because she's got her own money. He's not going to have to worry about having to provide for her financially. So he's got an ambitious woman that can provide for herself financially. When she's coming home, she's doing the majority of the cooking and the cleaning. And then she's going to be doing the majority of the emotional labor. And then she's going to be having sex with him. And then on top of that, he's going to humble her and break her down so that she's submissive to him. And he gets all of these benefits and his partner gets crumbs. And this is why I'm very scared of marriage at the moment, because this is honestly what it's looking like. It's looking like hell. As a woman, the benefits of marriage are getting slimmer by the day. Because I just feel like for a man, it is beneficial to get married. But for a woman, the benefits, I'm not really seeing much. Unless you really want to be like a traditional house, you're happy to be a traditional housewife and give up your life for your family and your kids. Like, what are the benefits? Yeah, what are the benefits? Because it's really looking scary out here. And the candidates out here are looking very scary out here, because a lot of them are like Alex, wanting you to have your money up so that they can marry you and treat you like a slave. Absolutely not. So obviously at this point, Roxanne is sick. She's shocked. So she just leaves, because she knows who Alex is now. She knows who she's talking to. She knows she's talking to a narcissist. So she just decides to leave. And it's very clear that, you know, that's kind of like the end of their trial marriage. And their trial marriage was a flop as well. They do talk before the trial marriage is over, and Roxanne basically apologizes for her delivery of how she said things, because things did get heated. But she basically says that she said what she said and she meant what she says, but she definitely didn't need to come with that aggression and that anger. Personally, I don't think she should have apologized. I don't think Alex deserved an apology, to be honest. But I feel like she definitely went in there hoping that Alex was going to apologize to her. And I knew that he wouldn't, because he's such a narcissist. She was there waiting like a good 2 minutes for her apology. Like, to the point where she was basically asking him, like, do you feel like you need to apologize for anything? And he was like, no. And Kat actually wants this man. Good luck to you, girl. Good luck struggling like a slave in that marriage, honey. if he even decides to marry you. Also, before they wrapped up the trial marriage, after that whole argument with Alex, Roxanne does meet up with Antonio, and goes to him for comfort. And Antonio is basically saying, should we just leave? Like, let's pack up our shit and go today. But Roxanne was basically, no, she wants to stay. So I'm guessing she obviously wants to do the trial marriage with Antonio. I thought it was a bit strange that she didn't want to go, because it's not like she was going to get with Alex. Like, she was choosing between Antonio and Alex. She knew she was not going to get with Alex. So I feel like them going home at that point would have made sense. But it's very clear, like I said, Roxanne is, Antonio is not Roxanne's dream partner, and she's even struggling to make it work right now. So I feel like she just wanted to stay to maybe, A, see what a trial marriage would be like with Antonio, and maybe B, possibly get a bit more screen time. Like, she's a businesswoman at the end of the day. A little more screen time wouldn't hurt. From what I've heard from behind the scenes, they still get to do like their work. She works from home. So, she's working from home, getting that money from her business. And then, she also gets a day rate as well, being on screen. So, as a businesswoman, you're already on this show. You might as well stay to the end. That's what I was thinking, personally. But yeah, Antonio was obviously struggling, and he just wanted to get out of here, honey, because this is definitely not the dream or the fantasy that he thought he was going to be having. And that night he actually did pack up all of his stuff and leave the apartment with Kat and not tell her. But they also do meet as well, and he basically just gives bogus reasons as to why their marriage was a flop, and basically said that he feels like, she didn't open up to him, and he was opening up to her a lot. Just a cop-out reason. But yeah, essentially their trial marriages were a flop. And then we have Raya and James. I didn't think that this trial marriage was going to be successful, but I didn't think it was going to go as bad as it did. Not as bad as, Alex and Roxanne and Kat and Antonio, but it was still pretty bad, this trial marriage. Again, I feel like there was no sexual chemistry in this relationship. And it was kind of more friendly in the beginning. The vibes are already off at the beginning, because James starts like basically having like a mental breakdown outside about Ryan, and I guess maybe him imagining her, developing a connection with a new man. Right off the bat, Raya kind of knew that he was not going to be like invested in her. And to me, I feel like James is very much like a sleaze, very much giving cheater, to be honest. In the beginning, he was being quite like overtly sexual with Raya, making sexual comments here and there. It was giving very much fetish vibes. It was giving very much, I know what your search history looks like. And I think maybe he was hoping in the beginning that Raya might, be his fantasy. He was definitely giving creep vibes in the beginning. And then he basically pulls a 180 and basically tells Raya that he doesn't want to do any type of physical affection with her, like not even hand holding or hugging, because he feels like it's disrespectful to Ryan. And then it comes out that he has cheated on Ryan in the past. So maybe he was just getting flashbacks or PTSD about when he got caught cheating, and he was obviously feeling these lustful urges. Maybe he was praying and he heard this voice saying, stop being a fucking horny bitch. Because now suddenly he don't want to do any form of physical affection. And Raya's not very happy with that. She made it very clear to him that she was not interested in having sex. But she did, want, cuddles or hugs or, hand holding, because it's meant to be a trial marriage. And she kind of like wanted that affection from marriage, and she kind of just feels like, what's the point of being in this trial marriage when they're basically like roommates at this point? And I kind of get what Raya is saying, but at the same time, you're not the one who issued the ultimatum. I could understand that maybe if you issued them an ultimatum, but you yourself are not ready for marriage. He's not ready for marriage. So I feel like he doesn't really have that much of an obligation. And even if he was ready for marriage, I just kind of feel like if he don't want to, you picked the wrong partner. You picked the short end of the stick. He doesn't want to be affectionate with you. Like, too bad, bitch. Enjoy your expenses paid break on Netflix's dime. Like, I just kind of feel like when she was making a big fuss out of it, like, it was just kind of like, it's not that deep, girl. Like, you really begging James to hold your hand. Like, do you not feel like a bit embarrassed? Do you not feel like a bit embarrassed having to do that? Come on, girl. Like, you don't want you, hun. Like, you know, you picked the short end of the stick, unfortunately. At least he didn't pack up all his stuff and disappear without saying anything, like Antonio. James's weird behaviour continues onto the boys' night, and he basically tells Trey that Raya said that she was open to having sex with him, which I just feel like is a complete lie, because we saw Raya say that she wanted physical affection, yes, but she drew the line at sex. She said hugs, cuddles, hand holding. That's all she said. She made it very clear that she was not talking about sex when she was talking about physical affection. So I found that all very strange and very shady. And Trey is also confused because he was saying how Raya called him up and was basically like how she thinks that James wants to have sex with her. And I guess, you know, from the way that he was making it seem, that maybe she kind of felt like he was, you know, trying to come onto her. And I can definitely believe that from the way that he was moving. And I'm thinking, like, why did he do this 180? Is it because, you know, he, you know, was praying and the voice in the prayer told him to stop being a horny bitch? Or maybe it's because he tried to come on to Raya and she rejected him, and that's when he started turning cold. Food for thought. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Can we trust James? Do you feel like Raya was like, yes, I want to bust it open for you? Or what do you think? Do you think James just made it up just because? Or do you feel like maybe James tried it on with Raya, she rejected him, and then he tried to sabotage her and Trey's relationship? I'd be interested to hear from you guys. The mess also continues in that conversation because James essentially tells Trey to ditch Raya, and that basically, essentially, that Raya isn't wifey material. Now, is he wrong? I don't think he is, but I just kind of feel like it was very messy, considering that Raya did try and make their trial marriage work. So for me, it was just all very shady, and it gives the vibe of he tried to come onto her, she rejected him, and now he's trying to sabotage her and Trey's relationship. That's the vibes that is given from James, but I gotta hear your verdict. Near the end of the trial marriage, James does kind of apologize for like not really being fully invested into the trial marriage and kind of like ruining Raya's experience. So they end their trial marriage amicably, but ultimately Raya and James's trial marriage was a flop. I feel like the only successful trial marriage was Trey and Ryan. Now, I wasn't sure how things were going to go because I didn't think that there was that physical attraction there from either of them. But they did have, you know, friendly chemistry, and they were friendly with each other. They were playful with each other. You know, they're very similar. They both want the same things in life. It seems like they have, you know, similar values. And it was really cute. And, you know, over time, Trey does say that, you know, he developed feelings for Ryan. I did like that pairing together. And I feel like relationship-wise, they are more compatible to each other than their partners. But I feel like there is that physical element missing. I think for Trey, he's a lot more emotionally intelligent, I believe. So I feel like even though they might have not been that initial physical attraction, I feel like he became more attracted to her as their emotional connection developed. But I feel like that physical attraction was not there for Ryan. I feel like Ryan came into this experiment for James. Like, it was either, you know, James is gonna marry her or he's not, and she's gonna explore single life perhaps. I feel like she liked the friendship that her and Trey developed, but I don't think Ryan personally saw a romantic connection, a serious romantic connection forming outside. Because even Trey was basically like, you know, we kind of developed, you know, a sort of relationship here. You know, after the experiment, would you be down to like meeting up or hanging out? Because we live quite close to each other, and Ryan basically said no, basically, like, you know, we'll see, but I just don't really see that planning out, especially if I get back with James. Like, it might just be a bit awkward. We do see Trey meet Ryan's brother and her friend, I believe, and it's very clear that her friend and her brother do not like James. They kind of just feel like he is, you know, messing her around. Like, they feel like, you know, by now he should have at least asked Ryan to marry him. I feel like they hope that she ditches him and finds somebody else. But I feel like they kind of suspect that she is gonna go back to James. Like, he's her high school sweetheart. Like, it's probably her dream, marry her high school sweetheart. So I feel like they kind of suspect that she's gonna go back to James. And I feel like Trey probably suspects that she's going to go back to James as well. So then we have the trial marriage changeover ceremony, where obviously the couples go back to their original couples and do a trial marriage. And the key things that happen at this ceremony is that Trey confesses his feelings for Ryan to Raya across the table in front of everybody. Maybe he could have done that privately, because that was a bit embarrassing. I feel like, for me personally, I feel like it's key information because he knows they're filming, so he's already told Ryan. So I feel like he did need to tell Raya about it, but do it in private. Don't do it in front of everybody, embarrassing the poor girl. But yeah, Raya's obviously very pissed about that. Her ego's definitely bruised, like her foot was shaken under the table, honey. She's just not very happy about that, which is understandable. Like, it's not really nice to hear that your man has, developed feelings for somebody else. At the dinner table, it's very clear that Ryan hasn't developed the same feelings for Trey. So Roxanne, she kind of keeps it cute, but still basically lets everybody know that she thinks that Alex ain't shit. And basically says, he didn't try to get to know her or understand her. She doesn't rate him as a partner, friend, or a person. Classy read there. And Alex basically rebuffs and basically says, well, I don't feel like you gave me a chance to get to know you, which is bullshit, like typical narcissist. Antonio also tells Alex that, his comments about Roxanne not respecting him really hurt his feelings and really hit a nerve with him because, it made him feel very insecure. Now, at this point, Alex should have apologized because his delivery was very harsh. And ultimately, I don't think it needed to be said. It was very petty and messy of Alex to say that. He did it knowing that it was going to hurt his feelings. And he knows that he's hurt his feelings. This person has now expressed to me that you hurt my feelings. Now would be the time to say, I'm really sorry that I hurt your feelings, right? Any decent human being would be like, sorry I hurt your feelings, right? But this Alex bitch is basically like, well, I said what I said, you needed to hear it. Hey, it's the audacity for me. Like, Alex is just like, it's honestly quite scary, the lack of empathy Alex has. And then Kat, I don't even know why she decided to pipe up, but she decides to pipe up and defend Alex and basically said, oh, well, he wouldn't have said that for no reason type of thing. Like, bitch, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Your man doesn't even like you either. Your man doesn't even respect you. It was given very much pick me. Like I said, have fun suffering in that marriage, Kat. And that's even if Alex decides he wants you to be his slave wife. And then the trial marriages with the OG couples begin. Now, with Trey and Rich, right off the bat, there's friction with them. Obviously, Raya's not happy that Trey confesses that he has feelings for Ryan. And I kind of understand because Ryan basically essentially said that she doesn't have those same feelings for Trey, and essentially rejected him. So I feel like Raya kind of feels like second best now, like a second option. So I feel like she feels like if Ryan was to turn around and say, yes, I have those same feelings for you, she would now be the one having to fight for Trey to keep her man. And she just is not really here for that. But like I said, she was going to find out anyway whether, he told her or not. Like, he said it on TV, like, he had to let you know. We do see Raya and Trey meet Raya's sister, and I feel like Raya's sister doesn't really buy Raya and Trey's relationship. She was definitely side-eyeing when Trey revealed that he had developed feelings for Ryan. I feel like she respected that at least he was honest about it and didn't lie and try and be shady, but at the same time she's kind of like, yikes. And as a sister, if my sister told me that, I definitely would be like, yikes as well, like, leave this man, honey. But yeah, as I was saying, I really don't think that she buys their relationship. I don't think that she thinks that Raya is physically attracted to Trey. And honestly, I don't think she is physically attracted to Trey either. It does come up that the physical intimacy is not that great. It seems like Trey is not very good in bed. and that has been an issue in their relationship. It seems like Raya is just trying to make it work. I mean, they've been together around 2 years now. I just kind of feel like if by now Trey doesn't know what Raya likes or doesn't know how to please her, I just kind of feel like it's not coming out. It seems like they are in a monogamous relationship. They don't want to open up themselves to potentially maybe having other sexual partners. You know, so it's definitely given just me and my hand tonight, just me and my toys tonight. And I feel like there's definitely some women out there who could, you know, still be in a marriage even though, you know, the sex life isn't that great, you know, as long as other things are good, like for instance your man is providing for you, he's treating you well, he's a good father, etc. I feel like some women confirm that maybe, you know, he's not going to be the one pleasing you. You're gonna have to seek that out yourself. But I don't think that Raya is that girl. I think Raya is basically in a space where she's making it work now, but she's kind of at the point where she's kind of frustrated, and it's like they need to solve this. Like she feels like she wouldn't be able to be comfortable in a marriage with somebody that she's not sexually compatible with, because it would open the doors to cheating. And like I said, it seems like they want to be monogamous. They don't want to kind of have like an open thing where when it comes to sex they have other sexual partners. So I just kind of feel like it's not going to work, and even if they do get married, I feel like it's not going to work, or Raya's going to end up cheating. But I gotta hear from you guys. Do you feel like for a marriage to work, partners need to be sexual compatible? I feel like the general consensus in marriage is, you know, that people are monogamous. But would you be open to a situation where, say, if, you know, you weren't sexually compatible, maybe you might open it up that you have, you know, other sexual partners? I feel like most people wouldn't be open for that. But I feel like maybe some people should. But I guess, you know, some people are jealous, you know, some people don't want to, you know, their man or their woman sleeping with somebody else. But maybe it could be beneficial for some marriages out there if you guys know that you're not sexually compatible with each other. Maybe be open to open things up to other sexual partners if that sexual satisfaction is really important to you. I feel like more people should be open, but I kind of get that most people probably wouldn't want to do that. And I feel like even when people say that they're open, people get jealous, people get possessive, and they're like, actually, no, I want to close up the relationship again, because that does happen. I feel like the best case scenario is obviously you being sexually compatible with your partner. But what do you think should happen when you're not? Do you feel like you guys should break up, make it work, like just firm it, that you're going to just have to use your toy? What do you guys think on that whole subject? But yeah, segueing back to the whole family meetup, I don't think Raya's sister buys Trey and Raya's relationship. Like even when Raya was saying that she's in love with Trey, her sister was making a face like as in like, really girl, you really love him? Like I don't think Raya loves Trey, to be honest. I'm not even sure if Trey really loves Raya like that, to be honest. I feel like a lot of these relationships are convenient relationships. Like they're with each other because of convenience, and they're very comfortable in this convenience. And I feel like there is a bit of immaturity from Raya. Seems like Raya is very set on moving to the city. She wants to move to Atlanta, which is obviously a very big, you know, financial hub. It's a big major city. There's lots of opportunities there. But Trey wants to stay where they are. I'm guessing they live in a more kind of like countryside area or rural area or suburban area. And he doesn't really want to move into the city when he's already like established himself where he is, and he's financially stable here and financially prospering here. For him, it doesn't make financial sense to take that risk to live in Atlanta, which is obviously with any major city, you know, you have more expenses. I feel like he knows if he moves to Atlanta, yes, he could get a good job, but perhaps maybe the quality of life would be less living in Atlanta as opposed to where they're living now, because I'm assuming, you know, Atlanta rent is going to be high, more expenses. So it makes more financial sense to stay where they are. But Raya is very set on, she wants to move to Atlanta. She wants to experience city life. She doesn't want to, you know, be where they are, which I'm guessing like is a rural or suburban area or something like that. And I can definitely understand Raya wanting to move to the city. You know, she's very young. She works, I'm assuming she's a waitress. I'm assuming she does work at Hooters because Lisa was calling her Hooters a bitch. She's a baddie. Maybe, I'm assuming maybe she wants to do like a creative career. Maybe she wants to be a content creator. And she feels like there's probably going to be better opportunities for her to do that in Atlanta, Georgia. Or even as a waitress, the tips are probably better in Georgia. So she wants to go there, you know, and be a city girl. And I definitely get that because being born and raised in London, whenever I go outside of London, I'm always like, get me back to fucking London, bitch. People love to complain about London, and yes, it is incredibly expensive and all these other things. It definitely has its fault, but for me, like, I'm not moving to Kent. But for me, I'm a stick beside her. In terms of the country versus city life, I will always pick the city life over the country life. So I can understand why my girl Raya, she wants to, you know, live her best city girl life, and she wants to move to the city. Trey is willing to make a compromise that she can go live in the city and live out her Georgia, her Atlanta fantasy. They can do long distance. And when I heard that, I felt like that was a good enough compromise, to be honest. Them doing stuff long distance, because it's a financial risk for him to move to Atlanta, especially with him being, you know, the provider in this relationship. But she's talking about how she doesn't want to do long distance and she doesn't want to go alone. So I'm thinking, like, why don't you want to go alone, sis? I low-key think that she really wants Trey to move with her to Georgia, not just because she doesn't like to do long distance, but I also suspect maybe it's because, you know, he's the provider. So if he is with her in Georgia, he will be covering all of the expenses. Whereas if they were to do long distance, where they are right now, I'm not sure where they are. I'm guessing it's, you know, in Georgia, in the Georgia area, and she goes to Atlanta, he's not going to be covering her rent because he has to cover the rent for this place where he's at right now. So she's going to be out on her own. Maybe she don't want to get a roommate. So that's what I kind of suspect why she's kind of like dragging her feet as to why she doesn't want to go to Atlanta, Georgia by herself, you know, initially. Even just for, because she was even like, just for a year. I was thinking, yeah, if it's just for a year, why can't you go out there by yourself? A year will fly by. But obviously, I feel like she can't afford it by herself, and that's why she wants to take Trey. And that's why she wants to take Trey with her. That's what I suspect, personally. Her fixation with Atlanta, to me, doesn't make sense, especially seeing that she has no ties to Atlanta. Fair enough if she had family out there, if that was her hometown, and she wants to go back, but she's got no family ties there. She's been living in this area all her life, but she's just pressed that she needs to go to Atlanta even for just 1 year. Go by yourself then. Go by yourself. So for me, it's giving like she wants Trey to come with her because she can't afford it by herself. And I feel like in the grand scheme of things, taking everything into account, her dragging her feet on this, it just shows that she's not really serious about marriage. She's not really serious about this relationship. So I kind of feel like Trey should find somebody else. If he really does want to start his family, start his legacy, it's not going to be with Raya. She's not in a place where she wants to settle down. And that's why she's so desperate to go to Atlanta, because she wants to be a city girl. Like, she's still young. She still wants to live life. She doesn't want to settle down and be someone's wife. She doesn't want to be a housewife. She doesn't want to be a stay-at-home wife. And I think Trey just needs to get real with that. Obviously, he has feelings for Raya. He loves her. But he's looking at Raya as his trophy wife. He's trying to make things work with Raya, compromising with Raya because she's the trophy wife. When he needs to get serious about what he really wants. Right now, with what he's providing, where he's living, he's probably not going to get Raya. If he's really serious about creating a family, creating a legacy and starting that right now, he needs to find another partner, in my opinion. I don't think Raya is ready for marriage right now. It's very clear that she wants to be a city girl. So Trey needs to stop forcing it to happen and let Raya go do what she wants. Then we have Antonio and Roxanne. And in the beginning, their relationship looks promising. Antonio is doing romantic things. For Roxanne, he's being a lot more attentive. So Antonio's definitely putting the effort and putting in the work in to prove to Roxanne that he's serious, you know, in the beginning anyway. Roxanne, however, seems to just feel like she has no work to do in this experiment. It seems like she feels like Antonio needs to prove himself to her, and not the other way around, because she's not really making an effort to improve on anything. It's very clear that Antonio likes words of affirmation, words of affection, you know, I love you, how was your day, you did a good job, blah blah blah. Like, he likes those compliments, especially after he's expressed to you that, you know, he's insecure and feels inadequate and feels like he's not good enough for Roxanne. So I kind of feel like, looking in, it was a no-brainer for Roxanne to feel like, yeah, I need to be giving, you know, him more words of affirmation, more words of encouragement. And when Antonio pulls her up on it, she starts gaslighting him immediately and basically saying like, I don't have to tell you I love you too all the time. I'm working all the time. I'm busy. I've got all these things in my head that I'm thinking about. Like, telling you I love you is like, you know, it's not always on the forefront of my mind. If you want attention, go date a 22-year-old. And I was like, Cha! Oh, maybe Alex was right, girl. What was that? That was so unnecessary. That was so unnecessary, girl. So to me, it is clear that she doesn't really respect Antonio, because it was very simple. All she needed to say was, yeah, sorry, I've had a long day. Of course I love you. Rather than, you know, get defensive and be like, oh, I don't have to tell you I love you all the time, blah, 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 blah. Like, what? This is somebody you're meant to be in love with. This is somebody, you know, who wants to marry you, and wants to be with you forever. And you're arguing with him about saying, I love you too back. What? And I was just thinking, at this point, Antonio, this woman clearly don't love you. She clearly don't respect you. Like, you might as well just cut your losses and go. I just feel like the power dynamic between them is just already off. It's never going to be fixed. The scales are just never going to balance. So yeah, I was just like, yikes. Then we see Roxanne's parents again. This time they're meeting up with Antonio. I assume they've already met him before. I feel like they were low-key shading him when they met up with Alex, but it seems like they're very agreeable on this date. I feel like maybe they were being very political, like, of course we're not going to tell this person to their face that we don't respect them as a romantic partner for our daughter. So obviously they're chatting and their parents are basically saying like, you know, what is like the problem in the relationship? What issue can't you get through? And she's just basically saying, you know, it's the whole financial thing. Like, she wants Antonio to be financially stable, like that's a big thing for her. And her parents are basically telling her like, just get over it. Like, if he really loves you, then that's all that should matter. Like, money comes and goes. Like, basically saying like she needs to stop, you know, putting such an importance on finance. They basically said like, when they, you know, first got together, they didn't have much money and we had to build ourselves up. And immediately I was like, immediately no. Nah, I'd rather just be single. If I'm here supporting a grown-ass man, let me be single and save my money. So yeah, I feel like her parents are definitely at the point where they just want her to get married. They don't really care who it's to. I mean, they did basically say like she has dated people before, you know, that were financially stable and it didn't work out. So maybe like it's like not the money thing. So obviously like you can't just use money as a factor for everything, which is true. I feel like money should definitely be a factor. There definitely should be other things you can consider as well, before you end up a slave to somebody like Alex. But also, like, if Antonio is the best man you've ever dated, I'm definitely questioning your taste in men. I'm definitely questioning your taste. Maybe you just need to pack up and move somewhere else, honey. Move somewhere with better options, because because if Antonio is truly the best man that you've met, the bar is very, very low. Very, very low. You know, I feel like she would like to get married, but she even said herself marriage is like not the most important thing to her right now. So I don't understand why she can't just stay single until she meets someone who, you know, who is her match. You know, I don't know, like her just getting pressured into this marriage with Antonio, it's just all a bit embarrassing, to be honest. It's just all a bit silly in my opinion. It's all a bit dramatic. Like you don't actually need to marry this man, you know. Being single is an option, and it's an option more women need to take. And then we have Alex and Kat. With them, I don't really know how successful their relationship is. It seems very much like it's all about Alex. Alex is still very resistant to being romantic to Kat, but he still, you know, wants all of the things that he expects from Kat. Because when Kat was basically like, do you feel like you could do a bit more of this for me? He was essentially saying no, but he was still saying that he expects this and this and this from Kat. And Kat is just basically just nodding her head and going along with it. We see Kat and Alex meet up with Kat's friends, and it's very clear that Kat's friends don't really like Alex and feel like, you know, Alex is taking Kat for a bit of a ride and kind of feel like, you know, he doesn't really want to marry Kat because if he did, he would have by now. So I feel like they don't really like Alex. We do see Alex's parents again meeting up with Kat this time, and again it all just seemed very political, like they were very friendly with Kat. But Alex's mum does bring up that, you know, she feels like Kat doesn't really challenge him, and that she always kind of felt like Alex needed somebody who would challenge him, which I just kind of felt was a bit shady. Like I kind of feel like Alex's parents don't really rate Kat, to be honest. Alex does stick up for Kat, and he's basically like, yes, she's quiet and she's soft, but you know, she's strong in that quiet and softness. And I was thinking, of course you like that, Alex. He clearly wants a submissive woman. And if he does want an ambitious, outspoken woman, he only wants one so that he can break her down and make her submissive as well. I feel like Alex's parents know who he is, and maybe they enable him, but ultimately I don't think that they care who he gets married to. And then lastly we have Ryan and James, and they do not start off well. At the beginning I kind of felt like they were going to break up, to be honest, because in the beginning it's very downbeat. It seems like James is jealous of Trey and Ryan's connection, and he basically tells her, stop speaking about Trey in my presence, which is fair. Like I probably wouldn't want you to talk about the person that you were in a trial marriage before me that went really well with. I probably wouldn't want to hear that either. So that's kind of fair. But they do kind of have but Ryan basically does, you know, check him in the beginning, puts her foot down and basically says that I feel like you are too comfortable in this relationship. Like you feel like I'm never going to leave you. And I want you to know that, you know, if you don't step up to the plate, I am going to leave. She wants to see more effort because she's not going to settle. And per Ryan, you shouldn't be settling, especially with your social currency. You shouldn't be settling, girl. She also makes a point that, you know, she also wants him to be sure that he wants to marry her. She doesn't want him to say yes, marry her, and then become resentful of her in the future, which I think is a fair point. But I'll talk more about that later because it was very vague in the beginning. So I'll talk more about that resentment factor a bit later on. But I'm glad that she had that talk with James, because James was definitely giving the vibes of like him expecting Ryan to deal with the tolerable level of unhappiness. Now with James, there is this kind of undertones of he's had this very rough childhood, but he's been very vague about it, and he hasn't opened up about it with Ryan, because Ryan has had like the opposite upbringing. She's had a very good upbringing, and it seems like when James tries to communicate his triggers to Ryan, it causes arguments. So for instance, we see an argument between them. I guess Ryan was waving her hands in his face or whatever when she was talking. You know, some people, they talk with their hands. And he was basically saying how her doing that was triggering him. So obviously Ryan is thinking in her head, like, what? Like, me talking with my hands is triggering you? Like, you're triggered by the way that I talk. So she gets defensive. Then he gets frustrated because their communication is bad, and he breaks a glass. She said something about breaking a metal glass, which I'm like, how did he do that? But he breaks a glass of some sort, obviously in frustration. She gets even more defensive because he's obviously showing signs of aggression. Ryan in her head is thinking he's making this big deal out of nothing, and now he's just angry at me just because he's angry at me. Like, this is not even about this. My hand stuff is probably about Trey, and now he's pinning it all on me. And then he's probably thinking, well, I'm trying to open up to her about my triggers, and she's just completely disregarded me. So it just kind of feels like the whole communication of his triggers was just going all round and round in circles. And I can get both sides of each of the perspective. I feel like there was just a bit of miscommunication going on here, simply because James had been very vague about his trauma. So I feel like it was hard for Ryan to differentiate whether he was triggered because of his trauma or whether he was just upset with her and taking things out on her. Eventually they do sit down and they do have a very deep conversation about his trauma, about, his family dynamic. He opens up about, how he used to self-harm. So he opens up properly this time. They have a heart-to-heart moment. It's very emotional. And I think it's great that he managed to talk to her properly about his trauma. I definitely feel like it's definitely something he probably needs to go see a therapist about. But I feel like it was kind of like, now he's opened up about his trauma. Does that now resolve everything? All of the issues in their relationship? I don't think so. I don't feel like now, because he's finally opened up, he's now a great partner for Ryan. But I'd be interested to hear from you guys. Do you feel like, what do you think after now he's opened up? Do you feel like that kind of resolves a lot of the conflict? Or what do you think in terms of now the trajectory of their relationship after James has now opened up to Ryan? Then we get a more insight into the thing that Ryan was talking about when she was basically like, she wants James to be sure about marrying her because he doesn't want him to resent her in the future. His first choice is studying at a good school in California, which is obviously far from where they are now. And then from that, there is a pipeline from doing that graduation course and then going to work at either NASA and SpaceX, which is going to be big money, life-changing money. Ryan basically doesn't want him to go far for college. She wants him to stay local. So now he's decided to do a post-grad course in South Carolina, which is going to be closer than obviously California. I'm guessing obviously she doesn't want to do long distance. And I'm guessing she wants to live her life in the area that they're living now. So he's now basically agreed to give that up. Obviously he can still get, a decent, job with this second route, but it's not going to be as much as working at NASA and SpaceX. And that's when I was kind of like, that's a very big question mark. And that's a very big ask from Ryan, to basically ask him to give that up, working at NASA, SpaceX, considering his background. I was just like, maybe this is the immatureness in Ryan coming out. And I feel like it was a bit selfish. I wouldn't feel comfortable asking my partner to do that for me if I really cared about them. I mean, he's trying to mask it as, it wasn't really his dream. Yeah, it would have been nice, but it's not really his dream, and he'd rather just go another route. He can still get a good job and he gets to be close to his fiance, potential wife. They're so young as well. Him basically giving that opportunity up for this girl, for marriage. I don't know. Because if that was my son, I would definitely be like, you know what? Don't marry this girl if this is what she's asking. That's fucking ridiculous. And I can tell the mum probably felt that way because, he obviously told that to his mum. Ryan and James had this meet up with James's mum. And she was definitely like, are you sure about that? She definitely was not on board with that. She probably spoke to him about that after. But he was basically like, yeah, this is what I want to do. But I feel like the mum would be on board with him marrying Ryan because she was basically confused as to why they hadn't gotten married yet. But I'd be interested to hear from you guys. What do you guys think on this whole career thing? James giving up this big opportunity to potentially, secure a job with NASA and SpaceX to live close to his girlfriend and his girlfriend's family. I'd be interested to hear from you guys. Do you think Ryan was well within her rights to be like, if you want to be with me, you need to, go to university close to me and give up this NASA and SpaceX dream? Or yeah, do you feel like, what the fuck, girl? Why would you ask that? I gotta hear from you guys. I feel like they're both being delusional, and I feel like if he really does give up this SpaceX NASA opportunity, it's definitely going to build resentment, in my opinion. They also clash on moving in with each other, or whether she would be open to moving in with him, and she basically says no. It seems like she's against cohabitation, and she would rather move in with him after marriage. And she basically says, if we move in with each other, you're just going to extend this period where we're not married. You're going to get too comfortable, and I feel like you're not going to be serious about getting married. And he was getting a bit defensive, like no, like how do you even know that? Like, that's not what it would be like. I just think it would be good if we like lived with each other first before we get married. And I can definitely see both parts. I can see, why people don't want to cohabit before they get married. But at the same time, if I feel like I wouldn't like cohabitating with you, I wouldn't really want to feel comfortable marrying you either. Because who's to say that they don't become comfortable once you get married? And these bad habits that you don't want them to get into when they're cohabitating will miraculously improve once you get married. I think that's a bit of delusion from Ryan. Unless it's a fact where she doesn't mind doing that, but only in the capacity of a wife type of thing. She doesn't want to act like a wife when she's still the girlfriend. Like, she'd rather act like a wife being the wife type of thing. Unless that's what she's getting at. But I gotta hear from you guys in terms of, are you for cohabitation before marriage? Are you not? Why? Why not? I'd love to hear from you guys. And that's where the series ends. I guess the next 2 episodes, I think there's 2 more episodes. I'm guessing the next episodes are going to be obviously the decision being made and then the reunion. In terms of my predictions for what couples will decide to marry, I'm thinking potentially Kat and Alex. I'm 50-50. I feel like Alex gives me the vibes of, he wants to wait until he's 40 or 50 to get married, and he wants to enjoy his 30s. I feel like Kat will accept anything from Alex, so I feel like it's all just going to rest on Alex, whether Alex, wants Kat to be his slave or not. So in terms of Raya and Trey, I don't think they're going to get married. To me, it's very clear that Raya is not ready for a marriage, and I feel like Trey needs to get real with that. And I think maybe comparing the 2 experiences, he's just going to come to the realization that, yeah, Raya is not marriage material. Perhaps maybe find somebody else. And perhaps maybe they might break up, they might stay together, but I don't think that they're going to get married. Antonia and Roxanne, I'm 50-50. I feel like Antonia definitely wants to get married to Roxanne, but I feel like Roxanne definitely feels pressured into getting married to Antonia. So I feel like even if they did get married, like, the marriage is not going to last long. And Ryan and James, potentially, but like I said, they're both really young. Ryan is very serious about getting married. I don't think James is. James is going to be compromising a lot. I feel like he could say yes because he wants to keep Ryan, and I feel like he knows that Ryan is serious, that she will leave him. And I feel like maybe he feels like if he goes off, he doesn't want to take that risk that he goes off, does his own stuff, comes back for her, and she might not be available. So I feel like he doesn't want to take that risk. So I feel like those 2 could be 50-50. But I'd be interested to hear from you guys. What are your predictions? Who do you think is going to decide to marry, and who do you think is not? Who do you think is going to break up? Who do you think may say no but continue dating? I feel like that's basically all of them. But ultimately, like, none of these relationships will be long lasting, in my opinion, regardless of what they pick. In terms of how I found the season so far, I definitely feel like there is less drama than the first season that I watched. I feel like, obviously the first 2 episodes was wild with Lisa. We got some drama in the trial marriage with Roxanne and Antonio and Alex. But then once the trial marriage started with the OG couples, it was a bit boring. It was a bit of, you know, background noise. And honestly, with these couples, I really doubt that any of them have like intense feelings for each other. Maybe bar James and Ryan, but everybody else kind of just seems like they're in a convenience couple. So the investment for me in this season is very low. And it's kind of like I'm not really like, oh my God, I need to know the decisions for the next episode right now. Like I kind of haiku don't care who gets married or not. Like I could literally read that in a post rather than sit down and watch these episodes. I think the only thing maybe I would be interested in is probably the reunion episode, but I don't really care about the decision, to be honest. Like even the ceremonies, I feel like the ceremonies this year was not as intense. The hosting was a bit awkward. Vanessa coming with her sob story. She needs to stop with that. Hurry up and write your book, your autobiography, your memoir, and put it in there, honey. Like I'm sick and tired of Vanessa's sub story about being a pick me for Nick. So yeah, overall I feel like we were off to a good start, but it started to get boring at the end and fading into background noise. Yeah, that's my review done. Do let me know what your thoughts were on my commentary. Do let me know what you thought about the couples in general, and do let me know what you thought about the individuals in general as well as your predictions. In terms of what's happening next on my channel, I have filmed my I'm a Cheerleader reaction. I just need to edit that now. So I'm going to edit that after I edit this. I also have a poll up on my community post right now for a vote on a summer themed movie reaction. So be sure to check that out to get your say. I feel like I am going to react to the final episodes on the channel as well. And that will probably be up next week. I'm also going to be uploading more of my Patreon reactions, which includes reactions of the Ultimatum Season 1. So stay tuned for that. And if there's anything you want me to review or to react to in particular, you can always send me a direct request on Patreon. Subscribe if you haven't. If you have, don't forget to put a notification bell on so you know my next video is dropping. I'm also trying to get to 5.6k subscribers. I'm almost there, and I'd appreciate if you help me hit that goal. And thank you to everybody who's subscribed to my channel so far, and thank you to everybody who's signed up to my Patreon as well. And thank you to everybody who's taken the extra step to sign up to my Patreon. It really means a lot to me. Till next time, guys. Bye.